In 2010, I was working at a salon, and the salon was going under pretty rapidly. The owner wasn't around. People were threatening to rip out the computer system. When I decided to leave, it was kind of like, if I don't leave now, I'm going to be jobless with a bunch of us in the same small area at the same time. I went and had a job interview at the salon. It was the last job interview I've ever had. I opened up her employee handbook, and there it said, "Don't leave the milk out. Don't be an idiot." Absolutely not. I am not working for a woman that puts this in the employee handbook. What my initial plan was to go out on my own to be in a salon environment, and I ended up being like an at-home hairdresser. That is what we started as The Nest, and that is where the brand started. Hey Rebels, it's your host, Charlie from the Salon Rebel Podcast. And today I'm going to do a little bit of a throwback to my very first salon, which was called The Nest, and how that kind of came about, and how I went from working from home as a hairdresser to opening up my first commercial salon. Now, if you go down to episode 1, my first episode ever is called How the F Did I Even Get There? And I started listening to this morning, actually, just to go like, what did I talk about in the first episode? Because I realized that I haven't really told my story in quite some time. We have some new listeners, and you can only say so much in like a 45-minute episode. So I listened back and I thought, I actually really love this episode. I think it's one of my favorite ones. And I don't know if that's just because I'm being biased and it's my story, and listening back to your own story on your podcast, which I will say, if you ever get the opportunity to go on someone's podcast and tell your story, please say yes, because when you get to listen back to what you've accomplished and you listen to it in a different perspective than you do when it's like literally coming out of your mouth and you're telling someone else, you get to listen to it back. And I think a lot of the time you don't realize how much you've really done with your life and how much you've achieved, and the things that you have, the hurdles that you have faced and you've gotten through. And I listened back to that story, and, it's me 2 years ago talking about the way I was I think it was 2010, so like 16 years ago now. And I just really have so many fond memories of like all those feelings of like building a business and starting out, and how that felt, and seeing how much you grow. It is so cool to be able to do that. And there's nothing like a podcast that really tells that story for you, that instead of doing it for like other people and telling that story, do it for yourself, listen back. And it really is like, sometimes you can be your own best motivator. So I definitely urge you to do that. And if you know somebody that would be great to hear their story on our podcast, please send them to me. I love new ideas for guests. Anybody that owns a business, is an entrepreneur, or just does something really exciting. We just love meeting new people and just finding out about how they do what they do and how they've gotten there. So today I'm going to tell you a bit about The Nest and how it started. So here we go. So in 2010, I was working at a salon, and the salon was going under pretty rapidly. The owner wasn't around. She hadn't been around for like quite some time. People were threatening to rip out the computer system. The bills weren't getting paid. We were being sent to the shops every day to just like pick up a few extra color tubes. When you work somewhere and you're just if you're a hairdresser, you're trying to like make a level 7, if you're not a hairdresser, like a medium light brown hair color out of like a black and a blonde, and trying to mix enough ratios in there to get like a level 7. That's kind of the stuff that we were doing in this salon. So when I decided to leave, it was kind of like, if I don't leave now, I'm going to be jobless with a bunch of us in the same small area at the same time. So I was like, let's just try to find a solution to that now. So I went and had a job interview at this salon. It was the last job interview I've ever had. And the lady was happy to hire me. She was excited. It was a cute rockabilly salon. I was like, this is so my vibe. I opened up her employee handbook, and there it said, "Don't leave the milk out. Don't be an idiot." Something like that. And I thought, absolutely not. I am not working for a woman that puts this in the employee handbook. I just didn't want to work for anybody anymore. I was really struggling for all the employers I had worked with. I'd worked for 13 salons at that stage. I had a few ones that I really loved working for, And a lot of them I just found were not run well. I always felt like I was always not getting along with, say, the management or sometimes the owners. I've been fired. I've quit many places. Like, there just was something about working for other people that just didn't really sit well for me. I think I just had too many ideas of like how it should be and what I wanted it to be like. And I'm just not the ideal employee to be in that mindset, right? And even when I've had people that I have employed in the past and it's like, I can really see this potential for you, but you are very difficult to employ because you're dead set in, the way you want things. And this is my business. So luckily, I haven't faced anybody that was quite probably as challenging as I probably was, but I called somebody that I knew that night after I got this handbook, and I thought, what am I going to do? Like, I can't work for anybody anymore. And she gave me the idea and said, why don't we just go out on our own? And, we can do our own thing, blah, blah, blah. And so I decided, you know what? Yep, I'm just going to try it. So we ended up going out on our own. Now, me and this person ended up, I guess, dabbling together and running a business together. It didn't work out, long story short. And it ended up me landing working at home in my house. So we had gone to open up a salon. I ended up leaving working from home, and now I was an at-home hairdresser. And I was doing hair in my kitchen, and then I was doing hair in a study. And there is such a big stigma about working from home, and I remember feeling like a bit embarrassed about it. So I had done what I could do best with like the room that I had. And it's not that I felt embarrassed about it to have the clients come over, but I felt a little bit embarrassed that what my initial plan was to go out on my own was to be in a salon environment, and I ended up being like an at-home hairdresser. So I did do that for a couple years, and I got to a point where we had to move out of the house that we were at, and I was like doing hair in the laundry room, sink, doing, clients in the study. And it was funny to realize how much my clients were like totally okay with that. And, many of them had followed me from the salon that I had been working at. And, and the salon that I'd been working at was beautiful. So to have them follow me to there was really, I was like, oh, wow, like you guys are actually like not that fussed about the salon. And they're like, well, they weren't really getting an experience there anymore. Like I said, the salon was kind of like going under. It was a bit of a very strange things going on in there. And so they were happy to come to see me there. I guess they got, great one-on-one attention there. So after we'd been there for about 2 years, I was like, I cannot do this anymore. Working from my house in like the capacity where like people are coming in your front door, walking through your kitchen. You're wanting to like have your house spotless in the morning because you don't want anybody to see even a butter knife out or anything. Like, you don't want to be like a normal human. You're trying to give them still a good experience in that way. And we got to a point where they were selling the house. So we had to make a decision on what we were going to do next. And we ended up finding this house. I wasn't ready to like open a salon yet. And we ended up finding this house that had a granny flat underneath it. And they rented to us, and they said, yeah, I can turn the bottom into a salon. So it had like a full like bathroom, ensuite, kitchenette, and I think it was about 45 square meters underneath my house. And that is what we started as The Nest. And that is where the brand started. Coming up with the name, the whole reason behind it was realizing that people didn't come somewhere just because of the salon or just, they came to see me, but they also really liked feeling comfortable. And I think that's what I really realized in having that at-home experience, that people were just really happy to feel comfortable going to somebody's house. And yes, I believe they probably didn't love, bending over my laundry room sink, and I'm probably they're probably pretty happy when I upgraded. So when we found the next space, I was like, what am I going to call this space that like makes it feel like at home? And I really want to embody what I want the clients to feel. And that's why I called it the Nest. Now I get so offended when people call it nest hair, because nest hair and the nest is totally different. You think of nest hair as like a bird's nest on your head and like terrible hair, and the nest is a home. So we called it the Nest. And when I built that salon, I really wanted everything in there to feel like really nostalgic and make people feel like it brought back like memories of their childhood. And in terms of just like, I wanted them to walk in the door just feel immediately comfortable. And that's where we started using like, kind of had like a little bit of a retro vibe spin to it. So I took like old suitcases, like proper like old vintage suitcases, and made them into shelving, and all of the decor in there was a bit retro and vintage, and just things that people would be like, oh, I remember like my nan had these kind of teacups, or things like that just made people feel something. And so I really started to realize like how much it was about a feeling and not necessarily like always about a result. So when we built that and we started getting traction there, and I started having clients would come in for the first time that hadn't met me yet, and they'd walk into the doors of the Nest and they'd be like, oh my gosh, like this is so much nicer than I thought it was. I thought I was just going to somebody's home salon. So it was really cool to see that. And you'd like go down this long, steep driveway. You wouldn't know it was going to be around the corner. And it was like these beautiful French doors and like this like fun, like vibrant hair salon. So we had 4 chairs and 2 basins in there when we left, or when we expanded. At that time, I think I had 3 hairdressers and 2 apprentices in there. So I had a space big enough for me to grow. And I think I was in there for about 3 years. And I learned so much about like our clients and what they really wanted as a client. Because a lot of the time, I think when we're in other salons, we're just thinking about the hair. We're just thinking about like, oh, all of our clients want this kind of hair, or they want to be in and out, or whatever it is. And we don't really have the time to have that like one-on-one time with our clients, which I really felt like I had from working from home. So in those first couple years, I was in that home salon for, I think, 3 years. And in the first year, I spent just absolutely flogging it. Like with clients, I built up my clientele. I spent a lot of time answering the phone on phone calls, basically like sales calls, basically. Like, have you ever like thought about that the person that answers your calls on your front desk is literally in sales? They need to close that lead, that lead is coming into your salon onto the phone, and you need that client to book in, right? So I think we often forget that it's not just about like answering the phone and answering some questions. We really need to sell our businesses and who we are on those calls. So I spent a lot of the time on the phone, getting clients to feel comfortable to come in to see me, because going to somebody's house, not having a brand reputation or anything like that, and having somebody trust me with their hair was a bit of a big deal. So that was what I really did for the first year. And I think that's what most of us need to do for the first couple years in starting out those businesses and really building that reputation in that sense of that authority space for yourself. So once we did that, we ended up with a massive clientele. So I ended up with too many clients that I couldn't handle all on my own. And that's when I decided that I needed to hire my first person, which was absolutely terrifying. So I know sometimes like you get to a point and you go, I need to hire somebody, but I can't really afford it. But if I do afford it, then eventually I can maybe make some more money, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up hiring first of all, we took on a rent-a-chair, and she worked with me for a bit. Then we took on an apprentice. And that's how I started with my love of apprenticeships, because I really got to see how much impact that we could make on these young girls' lives. So I took on an apprentice and built them up. We cycled through a couple of them in the beginning to find the right person, and eventually built one up. She became a senior eventually, but it really started to help form, I guess, the the evolution of the nest and how we embody apprentices and helping us build our brand. So taking on an apprentice, helping me get through those extra clients, being able to take on those extra people, having enough people then to then start to then get a new senior on and hand over those clients as those new seniors, and how that all sort of expands from there. So having that like long-term insight, which I didn't really realize I was doing at the time. I just thought, I just need somebody to help me wash hair. And then it started evolving. Like you think that, right? You think I just need somebody to help me make teas and coffees and wash hair and do all these things. But then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this person actually wants to be a hairdresser. So I'm going to have to teach them as well, which is also another thing that I've never done before. Coming from Canada, we didn't do apprenticeships the same. So it was a whole new ball game, taking somebody on and having that responsibility to give them a good job, but also teach them how to do hair and take care of my clients. So we started doing that and really realizing that there was so much more potential to that. And our client retention was so great because clients felt really comfortable. They felt safe in the salon. And we were really just, I think, hitting the nail on the head in terms of like the client experience. I remember I started doing, it's like serving food in the salon, and not serving food, but I had like a bowl of like granola bars and apples and snacks and things for clients to choose from. And just those little things that people would comment to be like, oh, that's so good. I've never seen that before. And I'm like, well, have you seen a glass of wine in your hair appointment before? Because we also do that. So we just started adding these little things to make the experience great. So while I was having, an apprentice come on board and help them with their hair and getting them to trust other people to do their hair, they also had these client experience that they were now expecting to have that made them come back, right? So for clients, I think sometimes we worry about like having somebody else come on and growing your business and worrying about like moving that clientele that I had, built up under me that wanted me to do their hair, and that now I wanted other people to do their hair so I could grow my business. But having these little extra bonuses built into the business was like these little extra perks of the salon to keep them there. And I didn't really know, again, that I was doing that at the time. But now I really realize in terms of like when you have, say, team turnover, or somebody's going on maternity leave and you need to move that client to someone else, that those little things that make it really comfortable for a client is such an extra perk to get those clients to keep coming back. Whereas if you're not going the extra mile and you don't have a great customer experience, if your stylist leaves, they're gone because they're only there for that stylist. So you need to find things in the business that's going to make people go, I don't just go back for the stylist. I go back because I like how comfortable it is. I like how convenient it is. I like that everybody knows my name when I go in. These little things that just make people feel really comfortable in your business, regardless of who's servicing them. So about 2.5 years in, I get the email that they are going to be selling the house. I was in a rental again. So I'm like, what am I going to do now? Now I've got like 3 team members and 1 apprentice. I think I was about to hire another apprentice at the time. And I'm like, I can't keep moving like this. Like the business is like really starting to boom now. And that seems like a lot of people, right? Like 3 people on an apprentice in a granny flat home salon. But like I said, it was nearly 50 square meters. So we had like 4 chairs, 2 basins. It was a decent size, but it was getting pretty squishy. And so I just thought, I guess now's the time that I'm going to have to look for something. And it was terrifying. Like that whole thing was terrifying to take that leap. I think something that I always thought of is the word salon walkout. People are terrified of having a salon walkout because it means that you could lose your whole team and you have no way to service the clients. And that's what's so scary about running a service-based business is we have to physically service clients. So when we were going to go work in a commercial, look for a commercial space, I was like, I can't afford to get anything that I'm not going to be able to afford if I am a terrible employer and I end up having a salon walkout. So I found a space that was, the rent was dirt cheap to start with. It was something like $500 a week. And it was like down this laneway. It was a total dive. Both salons that I've taken over were total dives. Like you would never think to turn those places into salons, but we did. And I found this space and I thought, yep, that's it. If everybody quits, I'll still be able to afford the rent. So that's what we did. And that's what I took over. It was 100 square meters. So it was a decent sized space. And it was only probably about not even a kilometer from the house that I was in. So we took over the space and we moved in. And I was really terrified to make that move. There's things that come with renting a commercial lease that you don't know about, like how much you have to pay for a bond. I think it's something like, I don't even remember now. It's like something like 3 or 4 months rent that you end up having to give up in order to secure your lease. And, that was all very scary to me because I just didn't really know how it was going to go. We really cheaped out on the fit out too. I remember thinking like I had a friend back home opening a salon and she was telling me they spent $20,000 on the lighting and this and that. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. We went so cheap with our first setup that we made it really pop-up style. My husband built like everything. He built like these doors that were on wheels so that we could move it around. So I could like just basically move the stations and redesign it all the time. And we did that all the time. I think we changed the front desk in that business like every single year. So we didn't put anything in place in there that was like super permanent so that we could make changes. Anyway, so we went to that space and I thought, I just don't know how that's going to go. I feel like it's going to seem so big and it's going to seem dead because there's only a couple of us. And I think within the first year, we ended up with like 7 of us. And then by the second year, I think there was about 10 of us. So it grew really, really fast. And I was so thankful that I had that much time with clients in a smaller space to really wrap my head around the runnings of a salon, because I think sometimes people go and jump into a bigger commercial space sometimes and it's really overwhelming. The amount that you're paying is overwhelming. It's hard to get that to understand your cash flow and all the other things that you're going to be doing, especially when you're trying to build your clientele as well. So, if you are at home right now or you're working freelance or you're working at a home salon, like just use that as you are just learning as much as you can right now. And it doesn't make you any less of a hairdresser because you are freelance or because you are, working from home. But if your plan is to grow that business, you can learn so much in that space, and you can trial and test different things. Our marketing used to be where we used to literally, I would go door to door and hand out, put pamphlets in people's mailboxes, and the ones that would say no junk, I would just be like, oh, well, this isn't junk. This is great news. So, I really, did some of the old school things to get noticed. And one thing that people loved, that people came in for, was not pictures of hair. I always use a picture of the salon and had a picture of where they would be sitting. And I think that's really important in our marketing, where a lot of people miss the mark on that. You jump on someone's website and it's like a photo shoot with girls with their hair. And it's like, anybody can look like that when they get done up. Anybody could wear a wig too. Honestly, I want to see where I'm going to be spending my money. It's like when you go to a restaurant, I want to see where I'm going to be sitting. Not so much about what the food looks like. I want to see around the food, what kind of, what that looks like and where I'm going to be spending my money. So we really focused on the aesthetics of that. And when we moved to the commercial space, I did the same thing. Even though I did it very cheaply, I was able to do it in a way that was it was fun and funky and different and stood out. And when people saw pictures of it, it looked like no other salon. And I do think that really helped us initially stand out against other salons, is merely just because Instagram is blowing up. Photos are circulating of different salons. How is your salon going to stand out? When you start a commercial space and you take that leap and you know that you're going to be employing people, you think that the scary thing is going to be how I'm going to pay the bills. What if I don't have clients in? But the hardest part of all was actually leadership and employing people. I had no idea how emotionally taxing that was going to be and how much time that was going to take up. The thoughts in your head, the conversations that you have to have for 3 hours before you actually have them. It takes a lot of time and self-development to get to a stage where that doesn't constantly affect you. So this is where I think it's so important to make sure that you do the groundwork in setting your business up, understanding your clients, your marketing, the finance side of that, the cash flow, because when you start employing people and then you start having a team, a lot of you is going to go to that team. And that's where I think we feel really behind and overwhelmed with all the other stuff. Because no matter what you have on that whiteboard of that to-do list of things that you have to deal with, if you have something going wrong in your team, with your culture, your leadership, with your manager, whatever, that is going to take up all the space in your head, not the things on the whiteboard that you need to get done today. And it will stop you getting things done. So you need to make sure that you have dialed in your structure on how you are running this business so that when those things happen, you have the capacity to deal with them. Otherwise, it ends up being an absolute mess. And you'll learn that because it'll happen to you and something will happen. Something will trigger you, somebody will resign, somebody might steal something from you, who knows? But it will always throw you off guard. It'll throw you off guard and you'll not know how you're meant to get these other things done with all this stuff going on in your head. So making sure that you have that in place is going to help you so much. So when I started employing more people and realizing that the leadership bit was such a big side of it, I did have to find that I needed to come off the floor just to deal with it, because dealing with the clients, dealing with the team, and then dealing with the admin side was just simply too much. So if you are listening right now and you are wanting to take that next step in your business, you're not really sure what that is. Maybe you're a home hairdresser or a beauty therapist. Maybe you have a salon and you want to expand. Think about what that's going to look like when you expand and what your life is going to look like then, and how you can prep yourself now for that to basically take on the new challenges that are going to arise. Because sometimes I think we jump into things and we're excited and we're motivated, and then sometimes we can be hit with surprise responsibilities that we didn't really know were going to be such big things. So this is why I urge all of our mentorship clients to really get a handle on their framework around how they're going to financially support their team. How are they going to price themselves properly? What's their cash flow going to look like? And making sure that they understand that. What happens if their stylist leaves with all their clients? Do they have a marketing plan in place? So making sure that you have those things in place, sometimes a bit before you start growing too big too fast is going to really help you keep a finger on a pulse. Also making sure that you have time carved out to be able to work on your business and to just whatever it throws at you that you have time for. Because sometimes what I see a lot of stylists do is they are booked 5 days a week and they actually don't have time to run their business or manage their team. And, people are leaving, things are happening, they're, trying to put out fires after work and all that. And you just don't really have that much time. So if you're wanting to take that next step, realizing too that sometimes you've got to say goodbye to your, to what you're doing now. So it'd be very hard to grow a business and stay where you are at the same time. Your jobs are going to change. Your responsibilities of what you need to get done every day is going to change as that business grows. So having to think about what you want your life to actually look like. What do you want to be doing for work? Do you want to be behind the chair or beside the beauty bed? Or do you actually want to be in an office doing admin, having meetings, doing marketing, that kind of thing, right? So I think realizing of where you want to grow from that. And if you don't want to do that, do you have the capabilities to hire somebody else and make sure that you're pricing yourself properly to afford someone else to be doing those tasks for you so that you can stay on the tools? All those things are really important when we're deciding to grow, because if we grow too big too fast, it is a lot harder to change those things later. Even though there's lots of things that we can change, it's a lot harder to make those massive shifts. So when you're little, you have such a great time right now in order to set yourself up, and just make sure that you really look back and appreciate where you've gotten yourself to right now. Like all the things that you've already done so far, like where were you a couple years ago, and look at where you are now, instead of just thinking about what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? How can we just stay in this space that we really wanted to get to and just maximize on that, rather than just creating something new all the time? How can we take what we've already built and make it better and stronger and more profitable? So hope you enjoyed this episode today. I know it was a little all over the place, but gives you a bit of an idea of growing the brand from a home to a commercial space. And we'll see you again next time.